Greetings, philosophers. Today, we're stepping into the smoky existential haze of Albert Camus, the French-Algerian writer who stared into the void of life's absurdity and didn't blink. Our theme is Camus on the absurdity of life, a topic that's as heavy as a rainy afternoon in Algiers, but trust me, as gripping as a good detective novel. So let's unpack this together. Albert Camus, if you haven't met him yet, was a mid-20th century philosopher, novelist, and all-around cool cat who didn't just sit in ivory towers pontificating. He lived. He fought in the French resistance, smoked like a chimney, and wrote books that cut through the fluff to ask, what's the point of it all? His big idea, the one we're chewing on today, is the absurd. Now, don't let that word scare you off. It's not about life being ridiculous like wearing socks with sandals. It's about the clash between our human need for meaning and the universe's cold, silent shrug in response. Picture this. You're standing on a cliff, staring at the stars, asking, why am I here? What's it all for? You want answers, something to tie it all together like the neat ending of a Hollywood movie. But the universe, it just sits there, twinkling, mute as a rock. That's the absurd, folks. It's the tension between our hunger for purpose and the fact that the world doesn't seem to care. Camus didn't invent this idea, but he gave it a name and a face, and he wrestled with it like a street fighter. Let's break it down. Camus says life is absurd because we keep searching for meaning in a universe that doesn't hand out instruction manuals. Think about it. We build careers, fall in love, argue on social media, all while orbiting a giant ball of gas in an infinite void. Religions, philosophies, even self-help books, they're all attempts to stitch together a story that makes sense of it. But what if there's no grand story? What if the universe is just there? Camus says that's where the trouble starts. The absurd isn't a problem to solve, it's a reality to face. Now, you might be thinking, this sounds depressing. Why get out of bed if it's all meaningless? Hold that thought, because Camus doesn't leave us in the dumps. He's not that kind of guy. He's more like your friend who drags you to a dive bar to talk about life until 2 a.m. His most famous book, The Myth of Sisyphus, is where he lays it all out. Sisyphus, in case you missed Greek mythology class, was this poor guy condemned to roll a boulder up a hill for eternity, only for it to roll back down every time he got close to the top. Sounds like a bad day at the office, right? Camus says Sisyphus is us, pushing our boulders, chasing goals, knowing deep down it might all be for nothing. But here's the kicker. Camus doesn't say we should give up. He doesn't tell Sisyphus to sit on the hill and sulk. Instead, he imagines Sisyphus finding a kind of defiant joy in the act of pushing that rock. It's not about reaching the top, it's about the struggle itself. Camus writes, one must imagine Sisyphus happy. Happy. Can you believe it? This isn't some fake positivity nonsense. It's about looking the absurd in the face and saying, fine, you don't give me answers, I'll make my own meaning. Let's make this real for a second. Think about your life. Maybe you're grinding through a job you don't love, or you're scrolling through your phone, feeling like everyone else has it figured out. That's the absurd creeping in, the gap between what you want life to mean and what it actually hands you. Camus says you've got three options when you hit this wall. First, you could take what he calls the leap of faith, like turning to religion or some big ideology to give you answers. Second, you could check out entirely, nihilism, despair, or worse. Camus isn't a fan of either. The third option, the one he's rooting for, is to accept the absurd and live anyway. Live fully, passionately, even if the universe doesn't send you a thank you note. This is where Camus gets exciting. He's not telling you to find meaning, he's telling you to create it. Write that novel, take that vacation, eat that extra slice of pizza, not because it's part of some cosmic plan, but because it's what you choose to do in the face of the void. It's rebellion against the absurd. Camus calls this living without appeal, No waiting for God, fate, or a PowerPoint from the universe to explain it all. You just keep rolling your boulder. Let's talk about how this shows up in his stories. Because Camus wasn't just a philosopher, he was a storyteller. Take The Stranger, his novel about a guy named Meursault who drifts through life, doesn't cry at his mum's funeral, and ends up in a mess because he refuses to play society's games. Meursault's not a hero, but he's honest. He feels the absurd in his bones and doesn't pretend otherwise. When he's facing death, he doesn't cling to false hopes. He looks at the stars and feels, for the first time, a kind of peace in accepting life's lack of meaning. It's raw, it's unsettling, but it's also weirdly freeing. Or think about the plague, where a town gets hit by a deadly disease and people have to figure out how to keep going. Sound familiar? Camus wrote it in the 1940s, but it hits home today. The characters don't find some ultimate answer to why bad things happen. They just do what they can. Fight the plague, help each other, keep showing up. That's Camus' absurd hero. Not a superhero, but someone who says, this is all I've got and I'm going to make it count. Now, Camus isn't handing out a 10-step plan. That'd be too easy. But here's the core takeaway point. Embrace the mess. Stop waiting for life to make sense. If you're stuck in traffic, don't rage about the unfairness of it. Crank up your music and sing. If your dreams haven't panned out, don't wallow. Find something, anything that lights you up and do it. It's not about ignoring the absurd, it's about dancing with it. Camus himself lived this way. He wasn't perfect. Chain smoking and chasing love affairs don't exactly scream role model. But he threw himself into life, whether it was writing, resisting fascism, or arguing with his pal Jean-Paul Sartre about politics. He died young in a car crash at 46, which feels absurd in its own way. Yet his ideas live on, because they speak to something we all feel, that nagging sense that life doesn't quite add up, but we've got to keep going anyway. For Camus, the absurd isn't a curse, it's a challenge. It's the universe daring you to make something of your life without a script. Camus says, accept it, rebel against it, and live. Don't wait for permission or a grand purpose. Paint your boulder, push it with style, and maybe even laugh while you're at it, because in the end, the meaning of life might just be the life you choose to live. If this got you thinking, share it with someone who's also staring at the stars, wondering what it's all about. Next time, we'll dive into another big idea that's worth wrestling with. Until then, keep pushing your boulder and maybe give it a name. See you in the next one.